Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to share with you a tutorial for a simple zipper bag. And I also am going to show you some of my other favorite bags. I've actually been refreshing my little stock of bags for when I travel and need to take sewing things with me. So I'm also going to share some of my other favorites with you after we finish up today's tutorial. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is my simple zipper bag. And this is actually the smaller size that is included on the PDF pattern that I have for you today. This is approximately 8 by 10. There is another size in the pattern that is actually just about 10 by 10. It has another row of squares. And you can actually, if it looks familiar, it's because I did a tutorial when I first designed this pattern a few years ago. I did a tutorial for it over with Kimberly at Fat Quarter Shop. And recently I thought I really want to kind of update this. So I've updated it just a little, and I have the free PDF printable that is new, and actually a few new thoughts and tips as we go along for this tutorial. So I'm going to demonstrate with a smaller bag. I've already made this one. I'm using our Bountiful Blooms collection, which will be in stores in September 2023. And I'll just show you, I used the chunky gingham fabric or plaid on the back, and just really love this. I'll see if I can open it and you can kind of see the print that I used for the lining fabric. And I love these bags. You know, sometimes you want just a flat bag. They are great for storing rulers, for traveling with them, for taking along small sewing projects. They're even great for keeping paperwork and things in your purse, even if you don't sew. So lots and lots of uses. What you're going to need is either scraps or one mini charm pack to make the patchwork front. And one mini charm pack will actually make the small zipper bag and the large zipper bag. So and I've already sewn this for the demo into a 5 by 3 rectangle. For the larger pouch, you will do a 5 by 4 rectangle and use 20 mini charms. But this one uses 15. And you can tell I just pressed the seams in one direction and then nested the rows. So, okay. Then I used Soft and Stable. You could also use fusible fleece or even batting. I really like the feel of this with the Soft and Stable. It just gives it a little extra stability. And so for this bag, this is my lining print. So the patchwork section, the piece of Soft and Stable, and all the measurements are in the pattern. And the backing this will make the bag front. And then for the back, again, you're going to have a lining and a piece of Soft and Stable or fusible fleece or batting, and then the backing fabric. I'm going to use the gray for this one. And so then you're also going to need a zipper that is about 12 inches long. I'm going to show you kind of a tip on this in a minute. And then you need a strip that is 1.5 inches by 10.5 inches. You could have it a little bit longer if you want to trim it. Don't cut it at 10.5 inches until after you've sewn your patchwork together, and make sure that it is going to be the same width. So maybe wait and cut that until you've got this sewn. But then also a little piece of interfacing that we're going to use for this strip. And optional is fabric for a zipper pull, and we actually have a video for how to make one of these. You just need a 1 inch by 12 inch strip of fabric, and we will link that video so you can go ahead and watch that video. Okay, a couple things I wanted to show you. For my zippers, I usually buy my zippers from byannie.com, Zippers by the Yard. And these are also available on Fat Quarter Shop. I'll give you a couple links in the description. But I love that they come with the zipper tape in a piece of yardage and then the zipper pulls. And it's super easy just to cut your tape to the length that you need and then add your pull. So I love to get my zippers that way. And then I also wanted to mention, I use Shape Flex for the interfacing. And I just have it on a bolt, but you can also get this in smaller packages, and I'll also have this linked for you because you can just get a small package that's perfect if you're working on some little bag projects. And then the other thing, oh, I forgot to mention binding. This is just some extra binding I had left over from one of my quilts. But this is a little bound bag. Technically, you could do it without the binding if when you finish the top and the bottom, you put them together right sides together and sewed and turned it right side out. You know, you could actually do that, but I love the finished binding on here. So, okay, and then one more thing I wanted to mention is I love this little chalk marker by Clover, and it's what I use to mark lines for when I do my quilting. Okay, I'm going to show you, this is a set that I've got all ready to go. I've already done the quilting, and I'm not going to demonstrate that on today's video either because we have a video that you can watch to learn how to do this crosshatch quilting that I did. We've already filmed a video and we will link that video, but that's what I did on the back piece. I took my little sandwich with my backing, my soft and stable, and my lining, and I just did about a 1-inch crosshatch. And then on my front piece, I just quilted 1/4 of an inch in from all the seams. And on both pieces, I did go ahead and do about 1/8 of an inch away. I just kind of closed up those seams for both of those. So that's your first step. You do the quilting, and you actually don't have to do it as close as I did. It's going to really hold together well. I just like the look of this quilting. Another option you can do that I sometimes do is give a larger piece of fabric and backing to your quilter and have them quilt it for you. And you can either have them use batting or fusible fleece or soft and stable, depending on the thickness you want for your bags. And then you can cut your bag pieces from that fabric that you've already had pre-quilted. So that's another thing that I do a lot. Okay, so I've got those quilted. And then what you do with the trim, you'll want to prep this before you get started sewing too, is you're going to fuse this. I'll lay it right here. Maybe I'll show it better on that green backing. And you just kind of center the stabilizer on that piece and just iron it to there. It's just going to give it, this one has already been ironed, it's just going to give it a little more stability when we sew with it. So after you do that, you are ready to attach the zipper. And this is one of the easiest zipper attaching projects that you'll ever have. You're actually just first going to take your front panel that is ready to go, and you're going to, I always make sure that my zipper is opening the way that I want it to. So I want it to, when it's closed, when my zipper is closed, I want the little pull tab to be over here on the left side. So I always check that out. But then what you're going to do is you're just going to put the zipper down right sides together with your bag and make sure that it extends across both ends. Make sure that your tab pull is in the middle, and you're going to sew this together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And after you sew that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and sometimes you have to move the zipper tab to get around it. With these by Annie zippers though, you sometimes don't even have to move it. It's just, they're really easy to sew with because the tape is a little bit wider than a normal zipper tape. So anyway, you're first going to attach it to that, and I've already actually done that so I can show you that this is what it looks like. After I sewed it, I flipped it to the back, and I actually did just a little 1/4 inch row of stitching there. Okay, so this is all ready. And the next step is we're going to take the band fabric that we've already fused the stabilizer to, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put it right sides together with the zipper, and we're going to sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go sew this, and then I will be right back to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I'm back from the sewing machine, and I've added that little trim piece, and I just sewed the 1/4 inch seam, and then I pressed toward the trim, and I did the same thing that I did on the bottom. I just sewed a little 1/4 inch stitch. So on the back it looks like that, where the zipper is flat going toward the patchwork section and going toward the little trim piece. Now this next step, make sure that your zipper tab is in the middle of your project, and we're going to trim the zipper even with the ends of our pouch. And we can just throw that away, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, we're just throwing those away. And actually, this is just such a great bag for beginners or for someone who's never done a zipper before, because the zipper is in, and now it gets really, really easy. We're going to put our 2 pieces together with our lining sides together. And what you're going to find is that the back, it may, just depending on your seam allowance, it may be a little bit bigger. It may be just right on. So it can all be trimmed. What you're going to do is, what I always do is just put them together, and I love to use the Wonder Clips. And we're just going to baste it together. And I'm just going to put a couple on each side. And I've actually lined up the bottom and the sides as best as I can. It looks like on this one my top is a little bit bigger, so I'll just be trimming that off. But I do like to baste it together before I trim it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to baste about 1/8 of an inch all the way around all 4 sides. And so up here I'm just going to stay about 1/8 of an inch away from that top, and then I will come back and trim it, and we'll go to that point. Okay, so I just basted that, and actually I just noticed I actually missed a little bit on the bottom, but basically I have it together, so I can move my zipper, and I can, you know, my bag is mostly together. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim up here where my back was just a little bit bigger than my front. Move the zipper so it doesn't hit the ruler. Okay, and some of my stitching from when I basted is still there, some of it is not, so I could go back and just baste the couple places again where I missed, to be sure. But really where we're at now is you can decide if you might possibly want to round these corners. That's really easy to do. If you do round your corners down here, I'm going to show you an example. This is another bag pattern that I have, a project bag, and I do actually have a video for this one too. And if you round your corners, you are going to need to use bias binding, and you can use a spool or a curved ruler to round the corners. You can even use a bowl or a glass, but just know that you will need to use a bias binding if you are going to round those corners. If you don't want to round the corners, that's great. What you're ready for now is to put your binding on. And what I do is I put it on, I leave like a little bit there, and I take my clip, and I usually just start sewing right about here. I want to leave a pretty big tail here for when I come around and connect the other edge of the binding. And basically it is actually just like binding a quilt. So I'm going to clip it, and I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and we actually have a video. It's actually one of the first videos that I made that talks about binding a quilt, and you can follow that video if you haven't done binding like this before, because the binding on this bag is exactly the same type of binding that you would do when you bind a quilt. So you would sew about from here to here and then stop, and it's all in the video so that you can miter the corners and keep going. And you're just going to go until you finish the binding, and then on the back side you can either stitch it down by hand, or if you want to stitch it down by machine, you can also do that too. But your bag is basically done. The last step, if you want to, is to add the zipper pull that I mentioned earlier. And again, we have a video for that. But that's all it takes to make this really quick, fast, and fun bag. I love to give these as gifts. And also, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to show you a couple of other bags. I was kind of on a bag making frenzy the other day. I think it was inspired because I re-released my Aubrey tote pattern with our Bountiful Blooms collection, and I redid the cover. And so I've got this, and so I wanted to just kind of fill it with other bags for when I go on a trip and take some of my sewing projects. So I'll show you. This one is my everyday zip pouch, and I actually have a pattern for this, and it also has 3 different bags included in the pattern. And I had to make it in the Bountiful Blooms fabric. I used the same little technique for the zipper pull. And this has a really kind of a fun method. And we've done a video tutorial for this one as well. One of the versions included in the pattern is a smaller version, but one of them has vertical strip pieces. And actually, I have one of these already made too. The pattern for this is included in this pattern, and it's strip pieced. And again, as I mentioned, the third one in that pattern is just a smaller version of this one. But these are just great bags, and sometimes, you want bags that have a little bit of width to put bigger things in. And sometimes you just want the flat bags. I actually was teaching a quilting class recently, and a woman had all of her block lock flying geese rulers in a flat bag like this. So another bag that I want to show you, this is the only one I'm sharing today that isn't my pattern. This is actually a by Annie pattern, and it's called the Stash and Dash, and I love this bag. You can get the hardware that I've used here, the buckle, from her, and there's strapping in here. You can get that from her as well. And I believe she might even have a video showing how to make this. But it is a great bag. It has 3 different little zipper compartments, and if you use the mesh that she sells, you can see what's in your bag. And I use these, actually when I travel, I put my AirPods in here, and then I put my charging cords for my iPhone and for my Apple Watch in here. And so I have all of my corded, charging station stuff just like this, and I can put this in my bag. So again, I'll link this pattern. This one isn't mine. This is a by Annie pattern. But all the rest of the patterns, including this bag, are actually mine. This one is PDF only, but it's on my Etsy shop. But the most important thing is the bag that we did the tutorial for today, that PDF is free. It doesn't come in a paper pattern, it's only a PDF, but it is free. And we will have a link for that. And then one last thing, I actually recently wrote a blog post about traveling with sewing, and that was part of the reason I started sewing all of these bags. Was I was going to take a trip, and I needed some new bags to store my projects, and so we'll link that blog post for you as well. Be sure to go read that if you're going to be doing any traveling this summer or later this spring, and you want some ideas on taking your sewing projects with you. I hope that you enjoy making these bags. They are a lot of fun. They're very quick and very beginner friendly. Okay, so that was it for today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and that you will really have a lot of fun making several of these bags. I really love them in both sizes. that are on the pattern. And remember that you'll find the link to my blog to get the free PDF pattern for this bag in the description below. If you enjoyed today's video, please share it with a friend, hit the like button, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for stopping by.